mental health therapist and relationship and emotional intelligence specialist. I hope you all are doing well. Well, welcome back to another live stream. I apologize about the time in between the different live streams. I've been trying to work on some different things and was actually supposed to start a little bit earlier, but ran into some technical issues because my setup is supposed to be for home, but I'm at the office and whatever, right? But you're not here for all that. You're here to learn about how to better your relationship. You're here to learn about the different pitfalls that might be there that maybe you don't see and you keep tripping, falling into, and learn how to actually do a relationship the right way, especially when it comes to communication. We are really heavy on communication when it comes in these live streams. So, with all that being said, guys, today we're going to be talking about the fact that you are arguing with things that they never said, right? As a matter of fact, it came from, I believe that the name of the foundation is Project Hope, where they have this T-shirt. They serve autistic adults, and the T-shirt says, "Don't hear what I didn't say." And so when I saw that, I was like, man, that's genius, right? Because a lot of times that's what we do. Our wife or our girlfriend or boyfriend or husband, right? They will say something and we will give it a meaning and hear something completely different. They might say, I'm kind of tired right now. I think I'm going to go to bed. And we might take it as, oh, I'm being rejected, or they don't like me or they think I'm boring. But that's not what they said. They said, I'm tired and I'm going to bed. But we keep giving meaning to things really that's detrimental to our own self. Right. So there's three things, right? You have what the person said, we have what we heard, and then we have what we decided that meant. We add meaning to it, right? And they're not automatically the same things. Right? A lot of times we think, well, I know them and, I can talk about their facial expressions, right? We start filling the blanks and the way they got up or the way they huffed or the way they shook their head or they did this, they did that. When we create a story and scenario around something that's not even true. We're hearing things that they didn't say. We're giving meaning to things that they said that isn't what they meant. And we're not even seeking to try to really understand what it is. Right. So I give you this example right here where it says, hey, I think I need some time to think about this. Right. And then what you hear, though, is I don't want you anymore. I don't care about this relationship. What you think and feel isn't important, or what I think and feel isn't important. That's why you're walking away. It's not what they said. I mean, how many times have you been in a conversation and then you're saying, or they're saying, you're saying like, no, you said this, you don't care about me, you don't love me, and this doesn't matter. And they're like, what are you talking about? I didn't even say that. I didn't say any of that at all. Yes, you did. Because when you said that, when you said that such and such situation happened, that it didn't really matter to you. Yeah, that doesn't mean I don't love you, I don't care about you. That just means it's not as important to me as it is to you. How many times have we had conversations like that? How many times? No, let's just keep it a stat. How many times have we had arguments like that? Because generally speaking, when we get to that point, it's no longer a conversation. It's an argument. How many times have we had arguments like that in our relationships? Over and over and over and over again. And then you're in this knockdown, drag out fight, 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, yelling, screaming, spending days, all this just to finally get to the end after you done scorched earth the relationship to be like, oh, I didn't know that's what you were saying. I didn't know that's what you meant. Oh, if you even get to that point. Some people will get to that point and then realize, oh, shoot, I'm the fool. I'm the idiot. I blew this whole thing up for something that was so simple. And so then what we'll do is try to double down and make an excuse or make it seem like, well, you should have done something else instead of taking responsibility for our own behaviors. Why? Because we heard what they didn't say. And see, the reason why a lot of this times this happens is because your past experiences will color the lens through which you see certain things. So for instance, right, someone says, I need to take space, because I'm just getting escalated right now. I need to walk away. And then you start to just get escalated. No, you're not walking away. You're always trying to leave the conversation. And they're just trying to go and calm down because they're starting to get escalated. That's all they're trying to do. But because of your abandonment issues when you were younger, That's what's kicking in. That's the lens you're seeing this through. They're going to leave me like my parents left me. They're going to leave me like my ex left me. They're going to leave me. So I am paranoid about that. And now I'm fighting for them not to leave, as opposed to just giving them the space they need to collect themselves and come back. That's what's going on in those moments. That's what's happening. And it's happening time and time and time again. And we don't even recognize it. We don't even realize that our past is coloring what's going on right now. And then what do you do with something like that, right? But what do you do with that? Well, you should be able to regulate your body, and you should be able to come back and say, you know what, hey, my fault. You know, like we've talked about in other videos, that body regulation is critical, regulating your nervous system so you can actually think through some of these things. But we'll get to all that stuff a little bit later on, right? So just back to our history, right? Looking at your history, the betrayal, abandonment, neglect, abuse, all of those things, they kick in those moments. And so when you hear any semblance of it, because here's the thing, let me explain to you how the brain works a little bit, right? I'm not going to go super deep, but just follow me. The brain is not great at detail when it comes to understanding the world and situations. And to be honest, that's the way it's supposed to operate. See, because what happens is when things happen to us when we're younger, our brain creates a very generalized umbrella of things tied to whatever that situation was. So let's say, for instance, your parents weren't the most attentive to you, right? So your brain generalized that and says, well, people don't really think you matter, right? So any semblance of someone making it seem like you don't matter, your thoughts don't matter, or you're not important, any generalized semblance of it, not specifically tied to, well, that was just your parents, and your parents got this stuff they're going through, blah, 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 blah. No. Because guess what? That's not a great way to form a protective barrier around you. Generalize it. That's what your brain does. Generalizes it. All people are this way. All men are this way. All women are this way. All people that are like this are like that. Our brain generalizes it because it's like it's a catch-all. Because if your brain tried to make every nuanced a plan for every nuance, it would not be very efficient. And your brain is extremely efficient. You know, when we're babies, we have all a whole bunch of different neurons for learning. But as we start getting older, it starts clipping those off because all those neurons, it's not efficient. So it's like, okay, let's get the patterns in. Once we lock in the patterns, we don't need as many. Lock in these patterns, we don't need as many. Lock in these patterns, we don't need as many until we have a nice, clean, fast, efficient highway of information. That's how our brain works. So that's why when your boyfriend or your girlfriend or husband or wife, when they start to walk away from a situation because it's starting to escalate and you have an issue with abandonment, that's why your brain gets triggered and doesn't think of it as a nuance. Like, oh, they're just going to calm down. Your brain doesn't do that. It's like, oh my gosh, they're leaving again. Like my mom left, or like my dad left, or like what are the, like that's what your brain does. So, and that's what it will continue to do if you don't take control of it. If you don't start thinking about, okay, what's really going on? Are they really leaving me? Start really questioning that. Because that's one of the biggest things when it comes to this. You know, we have to slow down and start questioning our own thoughts. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm getting ahead of myself. Just follow me, right? So that's what a lot of our history is, what colors how we respond and how we act and why we start hearing things that weren't actually said. And so especially the anxiety kicks in, you know, and the anxiety is like, hey, can we handle this thing that's coming, right? And so because we don't even know what the worst case scenario is, right, and in this situation, we go to the furthest extreme. They're leaving me. They're going to get a divorce. Oh, they're going to go off and be with somebody else. Oh, they just hate me. Yeah. Oh, I'm the worst person. Especially if you have like low self-esteem or low self-worth, then you start turning inward as well. I'm so horrible. That's why they're leaving me. I'm seeing it's another example of me not being lovable. Oh, I'm not good enough. You know, and so we start catastrophizing all these things, anxiety, because we're not answering it. We're not slowing down. We're just letting it run wild. So you get the generalization, you get your past history of hurt and you know, and damage and abuse and stuff like that, and neglect. You have that. Then you have the emotion of anxiety. You have all these things just working at you all at the same time. So now when someone says something, right, your significant other says something, And then you tell them that's not what they said, and that's not what they meant, or they meant something else, and they start, and that's a you statement, and then they start defending themselves, and then it starts going, left and right. Now they start calling you crazy. They start saying you're interpreting this, you're making this stuff up. Why are you always trying to start a fight? I'm not trying to start a fight. And now we're going back and forth. We're fighting, we're yelling, we're arguing, all because we added meaning to what they said, and it's not what they meant. We heard what they didn't say. We heard what we interpreted that to be based off our own past history of hurt and trauma. That's what we did. That's what we did. And that's not how we teach listening here. Again, we'll get to that later on. But we got to really talk about the issue and the problem, right? Because I'm going to tell you this right now. If you do have a lot of those past hurts and traumas and things of that nature, please, please, please get some help. Please get some help. I don't specialize in trauma. Listen, I have no problem putting a shameless plug in, but I don't specialize in trauma. Of course, I've dealt with it from time to time, and in this population that I work with, and people and couples and men and women and things of that nature. Of course, I deal with it, but it's sort of like specializing in it. Like, I don't specialize in it. So I would strongly recommend, if you're in a relationship and you've experienced trauma and it has not been processed, and then some of you haven't even talked about it ever, I strongly recommend you go and get some professional help. Someone who maybe knows EMDR or somatic sensory or some type of trauma modality, CBT, trauma focused, or, like some type of special trauma modality that can help you process through that. Because I'm telling you right now, those deep inroads, if in your own mind, that were created when you were younger, they don't just go away because you watch a video. They don't. I wish they did. I wish you could watch this live stream and it's just like, oh man, you're right, Keith. Now I'm healed. And then we go, I wish that could happen, but unfortunately it doesn't happen that way. I strongly recommend you get help, because your past trauma and those past hurts can ruin a great relationship. It can destroy a phenomenal opportunity for you to really receive the love that you've been craving and desiring and needing and deserving of your whole life. And you don't want your past to keep you from getting what you deserve in the future, right? So definitely, if you've experienced trauma, hurt, things like that, please, please, please reach out and get some help, right? Reach out to someone and get some help. I mean, I don't specialize in trauma. I specialize in men and women, and I specialize as far as like men and women issues and couples and relationships, right? And of course, emotions and things of that nature. But so that being said, you have that trifecta, right? You have your history, your past, you have the anxiety, you have your brain generalizing, you have all these things working against you that are causing you to misread what your partner is saying. And that's a problem, because now we're getting into fights and arguments that don't have to be there, right? We don't have to be there. So let me say this next, right? Don't prosecute someone because of the thoughts that you assign to them. Right? If you stop and think just slow down for a second, right? You're right. Think about what you do in those moments. When you start telling someone what they meant, you start adding meaning to what they meant instead of asking them. So you're not asking, you're telling them what they meant. So basically you're saying that I'm not important. So basically, so what you're saying is you don't love me, or things like, what are we doing? Like, no, I didn't say that. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. And then you're cutting them off, and you're interrupting. Yes, you are, because you said this and you felt like this, and now you're putting them on trial. Now it's like exhibit A, exhibit B, da da da. What do you think it's going to do to a person? Well, how do you think it's going to make someone feel? Ask yourself that serious question. How do you think that's going to make someone feel when they're now put on trial for something they didn't even say? And they say something, and you're telling them they meant something, and they didn't even mean that, and you don't even give them the opportunity to fix it. You don't give them the opportunity to explain. You don't even ask them, what do you mean by that? You take your perception, you take your conclusion, you put it as God's law, that the absolute objective truth that can never be changed, and then you charge them with an offense that they didn't commit, based off you giving meaning to something and hearing something they didn't say. That's not fair. That's not healthy. That's very destructive. Very, very destructive. Because who's going to feel safe in something like that? Who's going to feel safe in a relationship like that? Who's going to open up and talk? You ever hear about people talking about, I was walking on eggshells in my relationship. I didn't feel safe to open up and share. Because every time I open up and share, it's defensiveness. Every time I open up and share, my words are twisted and misconstrued. Every time I open up and share, things are twisted around and put back on me like I'm the problem. And I was just, that. How many people are going to feel safe? Just stop and think about that for a second. Take yourself out of it. Just think of that person. Someone who feels that they cannot even they can't even be themselves in the relationship because the very moment they share something that triggers your brain or triggers your trauma or triggers your whatever, they're going to get crucified for it. They don't want to be. Who wants to be in a relationship like that? Do you want to be in a relationship like that? Ask yourself that question. Imagine if every time you opened your mouth, every time it was something you were misconstrued, you were misunderstood. You were told you said, or you were told you meant something you didn't mean. You were told you felt something you never felt. You were told that you're doing the wrong. Like, imagine getting that conversation after conversation after conversation after conversation. And you tell me, how long would you want to be in a relationship like that? How long could you put up with that? How long could you go with you not being able to even be yourself? Because every time you open up your mouth, you get crucified for it. Can't share your thoughts, can't share your feelings, and none of that. And this is a quick thing. And let me also PSA, I'm going to say this. I do not, under any circumstance, condone infidelity. Just want to make sure I'm putting that out there right now. Do not, under any circumstance, condone infidelity. So I say that up front. But if you're putting your partner in that space where they can't even open up and share, it's always a fight. It's always being, told what they meant. It's always being told what they felt. They don't feel safe. Then you are busted. You may not like it. You may feel uncomfortable with this. Yes, you are putting your partner in a difficult situation. Because infidelity isn't something that people go out and just find. Like, I'm going to go cheat. Like, that doesn't happen. Usually people are pushed away. They try to connect, and they don't. And they're trying to live life. And somehow or another, they end up linking up with somebody. And they're just talking. And this person listens to them. This person empathizes with them. This person validates them. This person allows them to laugh. They can be their self over here. They start feeling free. They start feeling connected. They start feeling wanted. And all of a sudden, before it's all said and done, I don't even know what happened. Now they're a full-blown affair. Infidelity happens because they feel safe. Again, doesn't mean it's okay. Doesn't mean it's right. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if we're creating an environment that's unsafe in our relationship because we're telling people what they think and what they feel and what they meant, and we're not asking any questions, you can't look crazy when something like that happens. You can't just, how did that? I don't know, because I was just so perfect. And keep it a stack and keep it a buck. Yeah, no, I'll be tripping. I honestly was tripping. Yeah, I'm on their top one all the time. I'm constantly telling them what they think, constantly telling them what they feel, constantly telling them what they meant, constantly doing things like that. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to be hurt. And again, I'm not saying infidelity is okay, but you better dang well understand how this thing happens. Unless you're with someone who's just trash and they just can't keep it in their pants or whatever the case may be. So he or she's just out there doing whatever. But there were red flags before. Like, again, side note on that, like, if you have those serial cheaters that are just out there, like, there were red flags before, massive red flags. I'm talking about those massive, big, huge red flags that, like, just waving in the wind, right? So that's a whole nother story. I'm talking about you're in a relationship, you're in a committed relationship, then infidelity happens. A lot of times it happens because of this right here. Because people don't feel safe to open up and share in their relationships. They don't feel safe to open up and share what they're thinking and feeling, because every time they do, they get crucified for it. So that's the thing. Stop prosecuting people for their thoughts and their feelings that you assign to them. You can't assign it to them and then set them, and that's not what they said, and then attack them as if they said it. You can't do that. It doesn't work that way. It's not fair. It's not right. It's wrong. So instead of making these assumptions, what you need to do is get clarification, right? Because a clarification is stronger than an assumption. A clarification is, hey, when you said this, what did you mean by that? Hey, I noticed that when I was talking, your body shifted. Is everything cool? Like, hey, I hear you, but help me understand what you're saying, because you said this right here. I'm thinking it meant this, but I could be wrong. Could you just clarify that for me? Just let me know what that is. Clarifying questions. Why are we making why are we making assumptions? If you watch any of my work and you hear me talk about assumptions, assumptions only need to happen in one scenario and one scenario only, where you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision right here, right now, and you don't have access to the person. That's it. You have to make a decision on the other person's behalf for whatever reason. You don't have access to them, and you got to make it a decision. That's when you make an assumption. I take what I know about this person, and I take what their interest, their likes, their thought process of what I know, and I try to make a decision based off what I know about them. That is how we make an assumption, and when we make an assumption. I like the example I like to use is you're trying to make dinner tonight. You want to make something nice for them, but you can't get in touch with them to find out exactly what they want. So you take an approximation. Well, I know they like this. I know they like that. They already talked about that meal that one time, this meal, whatever. And then you go and you get the stuff for that meal, or you set a reservation to their favorite restaurant or something along those lines. Because I don't have access to the information. We're talking about a conversation you guys are having face to face. There is zero need for you to make any assumptions, about what they need, what they want, what they meant, what they were trying to say. Zero. There's no need. Just ask. Put your trauma and your hurt and your perspectives, put all that stuff to the side for a second. Just a second. Take a breath. Hope you've been practicing regulating your body. Take a breath, relax, calm down, and ask, what did you mean by that? And then take that answer at face value. What did you mean by that? Oh, I just meant I was tired and I was going to bed. That's all. Yeah. Oh, so you didn't mean that you don't care about me, you don't want to spend time with me, and you only care about your friends, and if anyone else would have been it, you would have stayed down and you didn't mean all that? No, just had a long day. Wanted to go to bed a little bit early. That's all. Okay, cool. We got to learn to start listening, and listening with humility, and listening with patience, yielding the floor, allowing them to speak. We have to start doing that. I tell my couples and the people, I tell them, listening is the most important skill in communication, the most important skill. Because if you know how to listen, and you know how to ask clarifying questions, and you know how to empathize and validate, you know how to do those things, even if they don't have it all together, you can still get to the meaning of what they meant. Even if they don't know how to necessarily communicate the best. You gotta listen. You have to learn how to listen, right? It's critical. And if they're telling you something, just take it. If they're saying how they think or how they feel or what they meant, that's what they meant. And if there's a part of it you don't understand, just continue to ask clarifying questions. Okay, I hear what you're saying with that, but what about this part right here? What do you mean by that? You know, hey, you said you were tired. You know, what do you mean by that, right? Because even something as simple as that, you might be like, well, you're normally not tired at this time, but now you're saying you're tired. Oh yeah, I really killed it at the gym this evening. You know, so I'm gonna just beat. You know, just ask. Make no assumptions. You have the information right there. Why? I mean, I want you to think of it like this. And I'm telling you that you can literally ask the teacher for the answers, the right answers on the test. For any question you ask them, they will give you the right answers. Making an assumption is like knowing that and be like, yeah, I think I'm just going to make it up as I go along. That's what that's like. A guaranteed A versus who knows what you might get. That's what it's like to ask clarifying questions versus making assumptions. Just like that. You just have to listen. Slow yourself down enough. Take yourself out of it enough. We just had a whole series on how to eliminate resentment, and a big part of that is not taking it personal. Stop personalizing everything. The universe does not revolve around you. I'm sorry, it doesn't. People aren't waking up in the middle of in the morning thinking about how they're going to ruin your day. They're not doing that. You were out here personalizing every single thing. Oh my gosh, you said that with a slightly higher tone. That must mean, oh, I'm a horrible person. You're trying to attack me. Listen, I hate to break it to you, but you're not that important. You're not that important that the entire world has their eye on you and is thinking about how to ruin your day or ruin your life. I promise you, none of us are. So stop taking things personal and personalizing everything. Stop. Slow down. Maybe you have that automatic thought from your past. Okay, cool. You have that automatic thought. It could happen. But just because you have the thought doesn't mean you have to act on it. Oh, shoot, man, that sounds like they're saying they don't care. Oh, well, before I jump on that, before I start acting in this way, before I start telling what they think and what they feel, before I start doing that, let me slow down, pause, and just ask, what did you mean by that? That's it. Simple question. What did you mean by that? That's it. Just ask a simple question and allow them to explain. That's how you learn more about your significant other. By asking questions and allowing them to explain. That's it. That's all you need to do. Just ask those questions. Regulate yourself. Slow yourself down just enough to ask that question. Because I know emotions run fast. They run fast. I think from your amygdala, they get to going. Right? But if you could just slow down for just a millisecond, just all right. Hey, what did you mean by that? I can change everything. It can change everything. Stop trying to analyze, well, the facial features, what they said, what they look like. They close their eyes, they open their eyes, their nose flared. We're looking at every single detail to create a story and a meaning that doesn't exist in real life, instead of just asking them what they meant. We got to stop that. I got to drive this point home. I'm sorry. Before I go any further and start talking about the listening portion, I really got to drive this point home. Stop personalizing everything that happens. You've got to stop. We are destroying our relationships because we personalize everything as if they didn't have a whole life and past and history long before we came along. But we're making everything about us. They don't like us. They don't want us. They're trying to hurt us. They don't care about us. They can't just have a bad day. They can't just have been busy. They can't have just forgot. That's not a possibility. No, it has to be about you, and they don't care about you and things like that. Come on now. What are we doing? We got to stop. Some of us are destroying phenomenal relationships simply because we're personalized things that don't need to be personalized. It's not about you. So please stop that. Slow down and start listening. And use, and now we can move on to the listening portion. We talked about this before. Use yes. Yield the floor. Stop trying to prepare your rebuttal. Stop trying to prepare and all that. No, yield the floor. I just need to listen and give you the space to speak. You know how much, people are craving that. Let me just stop for a second. You know how much people are craving that? A safe space to speak and share. There's some people that go to therapy, sometimes not because they have a problem, just because they want a safe space where they can be heard, validated, and understood. That's it. Not because they're having manic, breakdowns. Not because they have panic attacks. Not because they're. I just want a safe space to go and open up and share, where I can actually finish a thought, where someone can just validate me, where I can just talk, and I'm not being judged, and I'm being told what I thought, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. Some people go to therapy just so someone can listen to them. It's all they want. How sad is it that that's the world we live in, where people are willing to go and pay people just to listen? Something that's free, something that's easy. And we're in such a disconnected world where there's been so much hurt and pain and defensiveness, where someone's like, I can't open to no one. Let me go to therapy. Just so, because at least there, they'll listen to me. If nothing else, they'll listen to me. They'll hear me out. Your relationship is supposed to be the safest place on the planet. That's supposed to be the place where you could be your absolute self, silly, goofy, whatever, and you're accepted just for who you are. And there are many of us in relationships that don't want to open up, don't want to share, don't feel it's safe, feel it's going to be weaponized against us, feel like we're going to be told what we meant and have, with no recourse, berated and belittled with no recourse. So people shut down. They stop talking. And not everybody that does that goes on and has an affair. There's a lot of people that just stay disconnected. Some people just bide their time until the kids are gone and then they leave after that. And then people are wondering, like, what happened? Why are we getting a divorce? I don't understand. I was such a great wife. I was such a great husband. How many people are sitting there saying I'm a horrible husband, a horrible wife? How many people are saying I was horrible? Even horrible people don't say they're horrible. They say they're misunderstood. The other person was tripping, whatever the case may be. But if you learn to listen and like really listen, forget about it, man. You learn to really listen. I'm telling you, people are going to be flocking to you. People are going to flock to you. Because if you listen, they're gonna be calling you on the phone. They want to hang out with you and all that stuff. If you know how to listen, because it's so rare, something that's free, something that anybody could do. You don't have to be a therapist to do it. Anybody could do it, and yet most people don't, because they're so busy taking things personal, trying to defend ourselves and telling people what they think and what they feel and what they mean. Come on, guys, we gotta do better than that. In any case, I'm done beating that dead horse. Let's move on. Listening, using yes, yield the floor. Don't stop interrupting. Oh, that fact wasn't right. Well, I didn't say it like that. Oh, you're over exaggerating. No, stop. Yield. It's not your time to talk. It's your time to listen. Let them talk. No, but see, if I let them say that, then people are gonna. More often than not, it's just you and them. What? Even if they get some of the details wrong, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? I was in a podcast today, and me and my friend Gordon were talking, and we were talking about Inky Johnson, and he was saying like he was talking about how he saw the injury, and he was talking about, and then right after that, he said like the draft was like the next week or something like that. Well, I know the draft wasn't next week. He knows the draft wasn't next week. He misspoke. It's not a big deal. The main point was gotten, what we were talking about. So you interrupting. I got to stop you. Stop. Put your hands over your mouth if you have to, but stop. Yield the floor. Let them share their thoughts and feelings. Using I statements, but let them speak. That's the Y portion. The E portion, empathize and validate. This doesn't mean you agree. This doesn't mean you have to think the same way they do. It doesn't mean because they're crying, now you have to cry. It simply means I understand how this situation made you feel this way. I get it. It makes sense how you got from point A to point B. That's it. All E is saying, I know how you got from here to here. I know how from getting here to here generated this emotion. That makes sense. I can see why that would hurt you like that. I can understand why that would be difficult for you like that. I get why you're hurt. It makes sense. And if you can't get to that point where you can summarize and give it back to them like that, or summarize the next part, but paraphrase, and we can throw summarize in there as well, then you need to ask more clarifying questions so you can understand where they are coming from. That's it. Just asking questions so you can know where they're coming from. That's all. That's it. And again, the last part was just summarize and confirm. Ask them, is that right? Is that correct? Right? That's it. Just ask them, is that what you meant? Is that where you were coming from? Let them tell you. Again, you don't got, listen, again, you don't have to guess. You don't have to assume. You have the teacher ready to give you the right answers by simply asking, hey, what's the right answer? This is what I think the answer is. Is that right? Oh, no, you said it's A and I put D. Okay, I'm going to put D. That's it. It's the same thing in communication. And the sooner you guys get a hold of this, like early in your relationship, the better. Because it's a lot more difficult when a lot of buildup happens down the line. I'll be honest, it is a lot more difficult. So do it sooner. It's not impossible. You still should do it, right? Because we talked about, remember, operating excellence, doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. So I'm still going to listen, even though there's a buildup and a hurt and stuff like that. I'm still going to do and listen properly because it's the right thing to do. Regardless of what's going on over there, I'm going to listen properly. So keep that in mind, right? So that's how you listen. And I got to share this part too, because I think this is a lot of times people, they ruin all of that. They will yield the floor. They will empathize and validate. They will summarize and confirm. They'll check back with yep, that's correct. And then you'll go to argue your own summary. You'll go to arguing your point. Well, this is what I was saying, and this is So you just sat there and did all that work just to throw it all away? Just to argue something that doesn't exist in real life? Is that really what we're doing? Is that really what we're doing? Come on. Why? Why do all that work? Why listen, yield the floor? Why empathize and validate and paraphrase and then summarize and confirm with them? Why do all that work just to undo it and just throw it all away and ruin it right afterwards? Because now you're trying to defend yourself again. Who's attacking you? Who hurt you? Like, who's attacking you? More often than not, you can stop right there and that's enough. It's enough. You understood where they were coming from. You got their perspective. You saw it. That's enough. More often than not, that's enough. So sometimes less is more. So you ever seen those, like, they probably skits or comedies and things like that, or a scene in a movie, or maybe even real life, where someone does something and they say something, they knock it out the park and it's great, and then they start talking even more and they just ruin the whole thing? It's like, bro, shut up. Like, why are you going on? You already won. You already won. Why are you still talking? Don't be that person. If your significant other now feels heard, validated, understood, they now feel safe, they now feel loved, you now understand where they were coming from, you guys can now connect and skip off into the sunset. Why would you ruin it by then trying to argue your summary that didn't exist in real life? Well, because, see, when you said that, it reminded me of when you did it this one time, because you never apologized that one time, and then this time, now we're fighting about something that was supposed to have been resolved before. Like, what are we doing? Yield the floor, empathize and validate, summarize and confirm, and be done with it. Unless it's a situation that requires the clearing the basement strategy, which we'll talk about another time, where both perspectives are necessary. Unless we're in a situation like that, where we really have to resolve and see where both people are coming from, then that's different. Then we can start sharing different perspectives and things like that. If it's just one perspective, that's all that's needed to resolve this. Just get the one perspective and move on. Y'all could be done with this in a few minutes. A few minutes. No more hour-long conversations. A few minutes, and you get on, and you're closer, and you're more in love. And now we're, doing all the stuff that people in love do. Come on, don't ruin a good thing. Please do not ruin a good thing. All right. So here's another thing, guys. I said this earlier. Like I told you, sometimes I jump the gun, right? Make sure, right? Absolutely make sure that you are regulating before you're trying to interpret anything. Make sure you are regulated. If you're not regulated, I'm telling you right now, you're not going to be able to have it. You're not going to be able to listen at all. And if you're the speaker, also, you're not going to be able to speak properly either. You must learn to regulate your body. It's the number one thing. You've got to regulate your nervous system. A dysregulated nervous system is a nervous system that is out of control. And if it's out of control, that means you're not going to be able to do any of these skills. That's why you got to practice. You got to practice the breathing. You got to practice the progressive muscle relaxation. You got to practice with the stretching or the yoga, practice with guided meditation, or regular meditation. Like you got to practice regulating your nervous system, teaching it what calm looks like, teaching it what are. When I breathe, I take a deep breath using 3, 4, 7, breathe. That means, okay, calm. We're safe, we're good, we're ready to communicate, we're ready to listen. Right? If you need something tactile, right, you need to touch something, you need to ground yourself, grab something and ground yourself. Okay, we're safe, we're good, grounded, ready to listen, I'm ready to speak. Got to regulate your nervous system. Cannot stress that enough. You must regulate your nervous system. Teach yourself to regulate your nervous system. And it comes through practice and repetition. It's not just, well, I'm just going to do it in the moment. It's not going to work in the moment. It's not going to work in the moment. That's like trying to go to one of those strongman competitions and be like, I'll lift weight when I get there. Not a problem. I'll go ahead and deadlift 1,000 pounds when I get there. Never trained beforehand. Not a problem. Come on. Think about that just in real life, right? It's so crazy. I just want to share my thought on this real quick, right? It's so crazy that we understand these certain concepts outside in the world. You understand that using a strongman competition, you have to train really, 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 really hard, consistently with a strategic plan that's structured in order to go to the competition and perform and compete. You know that. You know you have to have structure in a business for it to be successful. You know that. You know you have to have a structure in your nutrition if you're going to lose weight. You know that. You know you have to have a structured way for educational content, like when you're in school and things like that, in order for it to be effectively conveyed to the other person, the students. You know that. In every other area of life, you know structure is critically important. When it comes to relationships, it's like the freaking wild, wild west. Let's just make it up as we go along and just do whatever we want to do and just talk how we want to talk and make excuses for poor behavior and poor skills and all that. Let's just make it up as we go along. We don't got to make it up, guys. There's strategies. That's what I'm trying to teach you guys. There's strategies, there's structures, there's ways to do this so that you don't have to struggle anymore. Communication's easy. So you guys can connect. You can spend more time in love than in fight and in conflict. So part of this is making sure you know how to regulate your nervous system. Because once you know how to regulate your nervous system, it makes using these skills much easier. Much, much, much easier. So please practice the breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, yoga, meditation, going on quiet walks, journaling, being mindful, grounding yourself, grounding techniques. Like, use these things so you can actually use the skills and save your relationship and improve your relationship. All right. So I'm just going to run through a few things real quick, right? Just kind of wrap some of this up because we're actually coming towards the end, right? All right. So some of the most powerful things you can do in your relationship, some phenomenal relationship habits. Facts before stories. Again, we talked about this and removing resentment, and we talked about how resentment is built off of incomplete information. You make conclusions based off of incomplete information and personalization. Get the facts. Part of the SIR method, what the situation, if you've been here, the situation, right? What objectively happened? When I say objectively happened, means that if anybody saw the same thing, then That's objective, right? Doesn't change. There's no variation. There's no interpretation. So something objective, Dr. Keith is talking on a live stream right now at 7:49. That's objective. I am talking on a live stream at 7:49. And if anyone were to see it, that's what they would say, right? So facts, not stories, right? Facts. What happened? What specifically happened? What do I know? When you're thinking about it, what do I know for sure? Well, they said this, right? What am I assuming? I'm assuming it meant this. What do I need to ask? What did you mean by that? That's it. That's it. That's what happens in that moment. When you take that breath and calm down, what do I know? I know they said these words. What am I assuming? I'm assuming these words meant that I was XYZ. What do I need to ask? Well, I need to ask what they meant by those words, so I can either confirm or deny my assumption. And again, you really could skip the second part because you shouldn't be assuming, because you have access to the person. So you could say, what do I know? I know they said this, and what do I need to ask? What did you mean by this? Right? Just keep it simple. What did you mean by this? That's it. That's all you got to do. Right? Build that into your relationship. Learn to start asking questions. Learn to start asking what the people mean by that. What does your significant other mean by that? Right? That's it. That's all you got to do. That's it. So now, right, my challenge to you is the next time you get upset about because you heard something that they didn't say, what I want you to do, what I'm challenging you to do, is to slow down, take a breath, and ask yourself, am I responding to what they actually said or what I believe it meant? That's what I want. That's my challenge to you. Slow down and just ask yourself that question. Am I responding to what they actually said or what I believe they meant? Because the thing is, you can't solve a communication problem, while arguing and fighting about what they said and what it meant. You can't do that. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You have to be able, in order to solve a communication problem, you have to be able to know exactly what they meant. Because if you don't know what they meant, you can't go forward. So you have to find out what they meant. That's simple. That's simple. All right. So, guys, listen to understand and not respond. Right? Listen to understand and not respond. Right? Because if you're listening for confirmation of what you fear, right, you're going to create all types of stories and scenarios, and it's going to go off the rails. Go based off reality. What was actually said, and what did they mean by it? Listen to understand, not respond. Listen to understand, not defend. You're not on trial, and it's not about you. Say it one more time. Listen, understand, not respond. You're not on trial, and it's not about you. Just ask the question, what did you mean by that? That's it. So, with all that being said, guys, we'll wrap it up there. And guys, if you need any help, you're struggling with communication, this is something that's prevalent in your relationship, and you need a third party to come and help calm things down and get you guys on the right path, let me know. I'm here. I'm still working on building up my coaching platform. I still got some other things behind the scenes that I'm trying to work on. So to really get things built out the right way. So, stay tuned for that. I'll definitely let you know when that releases. But I am still open to therapy in Florida and Nevada. Florida is virtual. Nevada can be virtual or in person. And also, hey, if you want help with this, as far as like you're a self-starter and you're really like a go-getter, right? We have the Yes Sir Communication Workbook. It's on Amazon. It's in probably some of these links and whatever platform you're on right now. Probably one of these links. Let's see what else. Boundaries. We have a workbook for that to help if you need help kind of identifying what some of your boundaries are. And get a general ideas of the main things and the main areas. We got a workbook for that. the weekly relationship reset. I haven't really talked about that. We'll have a live stream about that, the weekly meeting. But we'll talk about that. But that's up there as well. If you need some structure and strategy as far as that's concerned, and how to meet once a week to process either either problems you have or goals relationship, because eventually, guys, everyone in our relationship, we should be focusing more on how we're going to improve our relationship instead of just problems and fighting, right? All these things we're talking about, all these communication skills we're talking about are so you guys can learn how to communicate, so we can get past all the fighting and get toward all the loving, the connection, the building, goal setting, building a family, and all the other things that you're trying to do, right? All right, so that's the ultimate goal. All right, so again, the weekly relationship reset, and now this is not any of the links yet, but I did just drop a new workbook on. It's called the 90-Day Gratitude Reset, and I've been working on this book for a long time. I'm putting a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort into it, and the whole purpose of the book is to help shape our mind to start thinking more positively instead of always thinking negatively. Also help us to listen better. That's part of there as well. Regulate our nervous system, shift how our brain thinks, like literally shift and then change our brain so that we're able to find the good in things and the good in people, as opposed to always looking for the negative, and then also creating those negative belief cycles that keep us stuck, especially when about our. So I'll get those links up in these different places. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. Y'all take care. Have a great, awesome, blessed day. Thank you for joining me. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. But listen, as always, guys, I always want to end it with this, because again, like I said before earlier in the live stream, we live in a world where listening is a rarity, where people are willing to go to therapy just so someone will listen to them, right? Why? Because they're feeling alone. Let's make this world a better place, right? Even outside of your relationships, please learn how to listen. Please learn how to listen. People are craving that so much. They're craving it, especially kids. Oh, man, all that. One day we'll have to be like a side thing or whatnot, but kids are the adults in their life just to listen, hear their stories, listen to what they have to say. They're dying for it. They're craving it. You could be someone's hero. You could be someone's hero simply by listening. Beyond your relationship, if you just yield the floor, empathize and validate, summarize and confirm. It doesn't even have to be about you. It doesn't have to be about you. Just listen. Ask them that question. I'm telling you, it'll go a long, long, long way. And I'm telling you right now, if you do this, I can guarantee you are going to save somebody's life. I can guarantee you that simply by listening. Simply by listening. Right. So, all that being said, right, please join me. Join me in this tagline, right? Don't just let it be me saying it. I want you to be able to say it too with other people. Please say it, right? Because I promise you, and I want you to always remember that you are not alone. Y'all take care. Have a great, awesome, and blessed night. I'll see you all again soon.